So I'm an author that also does illustrations sometimes, like that's my watercolor. And I'm going to take you through the process of what I'm going through to figure out what kind of art to do for my next book. So my first book, Gardening Mercies, came out in hardcover. I designed it because I have a background in graphic design. And it has these old-fashioned illustrations with green ink, and I think it turned out really nice. It's a devotional, so it talks about gardening and the spiritual lessons we can learn from it. So then I got the rights back and I republished it in paperback. So that is this, and I think it turned out really great. This is Amazon printing, so that's really fun. Then I had this book published by Bethany House called Wings of Mercy, and then I got the rights back and I thought, no, I want to change the cover and I want to have my own art. So this is Lulu, they're a book printer, so this is a test. But what I really liked about this is I could do, this shows I have mugs of my paintings in my shop, but this shows you what it looks like when you do watercolors for your own book. And I think they just turned out lovely. I'm real happy with that. And I wanted to just have more illustrations on the book. So that was that one. Then I published another book, and this one was with Harvest House, This Outside Life, but I was never really into this cover. I always thought it was kind of dark and moody. So when I got the rights back, I did this fun cover, which I think we can agree is a lot better. The other thing I love about this is you've got 3 options when you print books. You can do it with Lulu, you can do Amazon, and there's a new guy on the market called Bookvault. And Bookvault does this really cool thing where they let you only have 1 or 2 pages in color and all the rest black and white, which I thought was just genius. So my back few pages, I have in color, and they only charge you for those pages. So I was real happy about that. My next book is about nature after dark. And I thought, I'm going to do lino printing, where you take a cut piece of linoleum, you draw your design, you cut away everything else, and then you ink it up and you print it. And then in the book, I would remove all that. Well, and this is still kind of sticky. This is months later. Yeah, it's cool, but it's incredibly tedious. It just takes days to do all this. And then test printing. You need to carve away more than a test print. And I was like, yeah, I don't have the time for this. So I abandoned this for something else. Something else was Scratchboard. And I thought this was really fun because it shows all the details. And Scratchboard is kind of fun because you can use different tools. Where are my tools? You can use different tools to scratch. I mean, you could use your fingernail to scratch into the paper, or you can use like this tool for cleaning technology and get, your furry strokes or whatever. So I thought Scratchboard was genius, but then I ran into an issue. You do a test page, like what's this going to look like in a book? You can't see all that detail. It just does not come out. And I realize this is off my home printer, but still, it's not showing. So then I thought, okay, let's go back to watercolor. So then I did a watercolor in navy, actually Payne's gray. And watercolor is my medium of choice. I understand it. I feel comfortable with it. I thought, that looks great. Well, what does it look like when it's on a book page? You don't really get the detail. I don't know. It works great for Cricut because you do have a lot of detail on a Cricut, but when you've got a soft furry animal like a beaver, then it doesn't show up so well. Like this. And some people say, that's great, but it's really not that great of resolution. I don't know. I just decided, and this is good quality paper at home. I think in a book it might even be less. I don't know. A friend of mine said, I like it. It's nighttime and it's kind of dark. I decided to try something else. And I thought the answer was, go full color. That's what you're used to. Well, this is what I call a bless your heart illustration. Like, bless her heart, she tried. I mean, really ugly. So that didn't work. And where I ended up was just ink, just black ink on white paper. I think I'll be doing this. But let's talk about pens. How did I get here? I was going to do fountain pens, but I couldn't find the kind I wanted. So I ended up doing these antique dip pens, and that's a whole nother issue. The most people are familiar with fountain pens. I always say what ink is on here so I know. And they're great, but unless you get a special kind that does thick and thin lines, a flexible nib, you know, it's just uniform, and I wanted a thick line. Well then, enter, this is a very popular one. This is the Sailor Feud pen. And the reason it's so, oh, this one unscrews. The reason it's so popular is it has this bent nib, which is really cool. It gives you these thin lines and then really thick lines. But while you're drawing, you have to go from real vertical to slanted, and I didn't want to have to maneuver the pen while I'm drawing. So I ordered from the Goulet Pen Company a fountain pen, like the original I showed you, with a nib that goes thick and thin lines, just with pressure. And the cool thing about this company is they send you sample inks. Like if you say, I want to try that ink in orange or blue or brown, they send you these cool little samples for like $2. And as Amy Stewart, another author who does art, points out, you can take these when traveling and then refill your pen. So that's cool. But the ink I ended up with is this document ink. And the reason I like this is it's 100% waterproof. So when I want to go back over my drawing with watercolor, I can, and I don't have to worry about it smudging. So this is what I'm using. But I'm waiting for this ink pen, this fountain pen to come, and it hasn't come yet. So I got out my antique old-fashioned nib holders, and I went through a whole bunch of nibs trying to find which is the one that works. I have bazillions of nibs. I mean, this is just a little bit of what I have. And I have a lot of inks, but as I said, I went with the waterproof one. And at the moment, I'm really liking, I think this is called the Blue Pumpkin. It's Browse. Let me look here. Yeah, it's a Browse. And what I do with my different nibs is I try them out and start writing with them. Like this is the Browse number 76. And this is Bristol paper from Strathmore. It's very heavy, very crisp. I like the Nico G, but I ended up going with this guy because I like the line it gave me. So the only thing with these pens though, you've got to watch out with what you're doing. Example, on this bird, this was my first drawing. I had a big spill right there in the leaf, but I thought, we're going to turn that into a feature and I'll make it a shadow. I could go back in with white paint and fix it, but it doesn't bother me. And I think it kind of offsets the heavy lines elsewhere, so I'm okay with it. The other thing I realized by doing this version is when I do that Cricut, I'm not going to have to worry about it being legible. I mean, that is super sharp and crisp. That's going to be great. The papers I used, I always write down what paper I'm using, so I did 2 different papers. Canson XL, which many that's sort of like a student grade watercolor paper. It's thick. I don't think it's 100% cotton, but it works. And the other one is a Bristol. The Bristol's a little whiter, but that doesn't matter. Once I scan it, they're all going to be white. This is smoother, and you definitely get those thick and thin lines, which I think is really great. So that's where I'm ended up, dipping this pen into the ink and drawing with it. And that's how some authors figure out the art for their books.